Hi folks, thought I'd give an update on progress on the Panhead project. I've had a few folks asking me about it, and so I thought I'd kind of update you on where things are. I had hoped to have it all done and be on the road today. It's been really cold up until about this week. We still had freezing temperatures and ice and things. But now, like today, it's in the mid-70s and this weekend is fantastic. So I was really hoping to get this all done and get out and ride it. But I had one setback, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Astute observers looking at the bike can probably figure out what it is right now because there's a big part missing. But we'll get to that at the end. First, I want to talk about what I have done on this project so far. So, first of all, as you might remember in my last video, this is a 1954 Panhead, but a lot of the parts and things that were on it were from later years. Some of that I don't care about. Some of it I wanted to change out because I like the look of the 1954 parts better. So, as an example, this is the front fender. And originally, when I got the bike, it had a 1959 fender tip on it and did not have the medallion. So I've corrected that. Not only now do I have the right year fender tip, but I've got the very cool 50-year anniversary medallion. While I was doing that and had the wheel off, I decided also to add the cooling ring. That's the sort of corrugated looking cast ring that goes on the drum brake. I suppose it's probably supposed to, from the name, help keep the brake drum cool, but mostly I just like the retro look of it, and I thought I'd put it on there. Other things that I have done are the back. So this is the correct rear fender for this bike. I point that out because here's the one that it came with over here, which is 55 and up. It's got the oval tail light and slightly different. And so what I did was look over here. Come on, camera, catch up. I got on eBay a really awful paint job, beat up 1954 fender flip, and I separated the hinge and replaced the rear flip with the one off of eBay. And of course I took it and had it repainted. The one that I got on eBay not only needed a little bit of body work done to it, but also was this awful green where someone had sprinkled gold square glitter into the clear coat. It was just pretty awful. But the good news is the shop did a great job on the paint, and now I've got my tombstone tail light and the private stripes there. That's these chrome stripes, and everything is correct. I just like the look of the 54 tombstone tail light and rear end better. The other big project was the toolbox here. Originally, they had put in a voltage regulator and routed it into this toolbox, which is a big square deal, and that made there was no room left in the toolbox for tools. And so in order to correct that, I got the correct voltage regulator for this bike. And the problem there is the way, on some bikes it mounts in the back of the generator. On this one, being an FLE, it's made to go on the coil, on a special bracket here. The problem being is that I had a round coil, which doesn't have room for the studs to go through to mount this bracket. So as part of that process, I got the correct, I don't know if you can see it in there, rectangular coil, and I got the bracket and the correct voltage regulator. But the mounting studs were impossible to find. That's these sort of hexagonal 3.5 inch studs here. I found a couple of them on eBay for a couple $100 of ridiculousness. So what I ended up doing, since I'm not trying to make this thing as authentic as a showroom piece, I just took some old rusty, like 9/16 rod that I had in the barn and took it to the mill, and I milled out flats on it, got it down to the right size, cut threads on the end. It takes a 5/16 by 24 thread on the interior thread and the stud on the end, and that was what was needed to mount everything up. And then I parkerized them. I actually cheated. I didn't parkerize them. I used gun bluing and made them look like parkerization. But anyway, they'll hold up. A little bit of rust doesn't hurt anything, and they'll because I used old rusty rod, they got some wear and tear look on them that actually looks appropriate. But that's what I did there. So now I've got a working voltage regulator that's in the right place, and perhaps more importantly, I can actually use my toolbox. Other things I have done so far, I have added the buddy seat clip and buddy seat spring assembly. I still have the solo seat, not the buddy seat, but that's all right. If I ever add a buddy seat, I'll have the clip and the spring ready to use. And in the meantime, I thought I might experiment around and put the appropriate clips in the back of the seat so that when I flip up this thing for extra support, I can have extra support underneath the solo seat. But we'll see. It's an option. Other than that, there were a bunch of electrical problems. I tore into it. Sometimes when you get into electrical issues, it can be really frustrating to try and troubleshoot. In this case, it was really simple. Right behind the headlight there's a, I call it a circuit board, but it's pre-circuit boards. It's a terminal board. And some of the connectors have broken off the wires because they were too short. So corrected that, now everything works. You can see there's some wires hanging out there. That's from the horn, which is over there sitting on the ground. And the fuel line is disconnected, which leads me to my issue why it's not running right now, and that's the carburetor. I thought it was all ready to go. I took it down off the lift, went and put gas in it, and gas just started pouring out of the carburetor all over the floor. When I had originally got the bike, they told me they did a carb rebuild on it. Looking at the carb, it looks like they took it apart and cleaned out the gummed up passages, but didn't actually replace the parts. So I've got it taken apart in a can. The throttle body right now is in a can of cleaner here. And the big issues were the float was full of gas, and still kind of is. Still some dripping out of the hole there. I don't know if there's a leak in it somewhere, or if they just didn't screw in the screw into the hole all the way in, so gas got in that way. But either way, the float was now a sink. It was no longer a float, which meant that fuel coming in would just keep coming in. But then the other problem is the float bowl wasn't sealing against the body, and so fuel was just pouring out the top of the float bowl. So either one alone would have been annoying. With the float not working, it means the gas will come up and go out the throttle body. With in theory, if the float were working, it wouldn't ever get to the top of the float bowl, but either way, it should be corrected. The gaskets they had on there were clearly, I mean, you can see how brittle this is. This was not a new gasket. They clearly didn't replace the gaskets. So I've got it all torn apart. There's all the pieces there. Once I get the throttle body out of there, I'll run everything through the cleaner. I might even bust out the ultrasonic cleaner and run them through that. But even things like the Venturi was covered in gunk, so it was clearly not taken out and cleaned. The downside is it'll be about a week before the new gaskets arrive for the gasket kit and the carb rebuild kit. So that means the bike will be down until I can get those parts in and get back to it. The only other thing is I disconnected the fuel line, obviously, to take the carb out. And I'm just not impressed with this fuel line for a couple reasons. One, it's an old copper line. It's all kind of weird bends in it from probably people over the years moving it around. It feels a little short. It's really hard to get all the way over to the carb without nesting it into the fins of the engine. And you know, these old rubber seals do wear out after a while. It didn't seem to be leaking, but just in case, I've got a new one coming. Not sure if it's stainless or chrome, but it'll match the bike a little better. And when I put the new carb on, I'll hook up the new fuel line to it. And the horn is off just because I need to be able to get access to get the carb and the fuel line in and out past the manifold a little easier. So that's it. We're just about there, almost ready to take on the road, but can't run without a carb. So that's where we are now, is waiting for that to come back. Let's see if I can get this camera up a little bit. There we go. See a good look at the controls, and it sure is a good looking bike. I just wish it wasn't just good looking sitting in my garage. I'd like to have it out on the road. All right, well, until next time, folks.